Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Not For Nothing. I am here today at Hope Gallery, and we've got a special guest with us. I apologize for the camera situation, but it's kind of a pain in the ass to set all this shit up. But I'm going to let our special guest introduce themselves.
How's it going?
You don't have to stare at the cameras. You can just...
Okay, go to. How's it going? Who do I look at? You?
Well, I mean, the red light will show you that the camera's on you,
Okay.
but realistically, I just want to have a conversation.
All right, cool.
Not really.
Well, my name is Marvin Silva, and I'm from New York. What do I say? I tattoo out of Black Sail Studios in Sayville, Long Island. That's the gist of it.
That's the gist of it. Oh, God. Well, this is going to be an interesting fucking interview.
Okay.
And I'm also here with Christian. You want to say anything?
What's up, guys? I'm back.
So, yes. So Marvin's here from Long Island, New York. I met you a real long time ago at Scotty Kelly's.
Yes.
Which was originally, it was Super 88 Tattoo, and then he caught a lot of hell because... I'm not going to get into it. Anybody who knows. He is not that person. And then he turned it into electric. What do you call it?
Superstition.
Yeah, electric superstition. Why am I drawing a blank on that? Holy shit. And you kind of apprenticed there, no?
I did. That's where I started tattooing. Actually, that was back when I didn't know what I was doing. Actually, before I apprenticed with Scotty, I was tattooing, scratching in my parents' basement, and my information was I was getting from BMEzine. Do you remember BMEzine?
Oh yeah.
And like Tattoo Nation and different forums, and then
Tattoo Nation was huge back in the day. You were on that too, right?
Yeah, that's where you met a lot. We met a lot of people. And I read in a lot of the forums said to really get started in tattooing was you really had to get an apprenticeship. And I'm like, how do I do that? You know, so I called a bunch of shops, and Scotty was the only one that took me in.
How old were you at this point? Like
21.
And what made you want to get into tattooing? Like, were you tattooed already or no?
I had 2 tattoos.
You had 2 tattoos?
And there was something about being inside a tattoo shop. I always drew, but there was something about being in a tattoo shop with all the flash and all the knickknacks and everything that drew me in. I'm like, this is cool. Yeah. This is cool.
Now, were you local to like to Massapequa? Or?
I wasn't. I was actually living in Queens at the time.
Oh shit! So you were traveling.
I was driving every day, and at that point too, I think I had like 3 jobs I had to let go eventually. I was also going to school, which I also dropped out of school to commit to tattooing.
What were you doing? What were you taking to school?
Audio production.
Oh wow, that's completely different from getting into tattooing.
Right. I was in the band at the time too, so my goal was to become a rock star.
Jesus.
My dreams were like little kids, you know. I wanted to be a rock star. I had like posters on the wall. I want to be like those guys, you know. That didn't happen.
I don't know if you ever heard his band. They're really good.
For real?
Yeah, like no joke.
No, I did not. I've never heard your band. Like, are you still playing music? Or?
No.
You stopped. Tattooing just took over.
It took over everything.
Yeah, I could see that being the case. I mean, that's a big deal with any of us, you know.
And being in a band, it was like being in 5 marriages.
Were you in one band or were you in several bands?
I was in one band.
In one band.
And I thought about joining other bands after that, but I was all about being with my friends, and it didn't feel the same making music with other people. I just couldn't. I didn't read music. I'm not classically trained or anything, so I fed off the vibe of
the people around you. What did you play?
I played the guitar.
You played guitar?
Yeah.
Now, how did you guys have to get anywhere? Actually get anywhere, or just like once you?
We recorded a few CDs and we played some shows, and we got to play at CBGB's. And,
that's sweet.
Yeah, you know, I feel like if we had management, it would have been
something different.
It would have been something. Yeah.
Now, let me ask you a question. Do you think that if the band had taken off and tattooing had taken off as well, what do you have an idea of what maybe would have won over the other? Do you I mean, obviously you're still tattooing, but
yeah, right.
That could very well be because the band just didn't work out.
It didn't work out. I feel like the 12 years that I was in that band, we collectively probably made like almost $1,000.
That's not good.
That's not good at all. So you got to follow the money at some point, and and I go with what feels good. And being an artist or somebody who drew all the time, tattooing kind of just felt the next best thing.
The next best thing. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of artists think that way. It's like, I think that being a tattooer, and I hate using the word rock star, but a lot of the people in this business actually look at it as being a fucking rock star.
Some similarities for sure.
I mean, how do you feel about, like your?
I don't feel like I'm a rock star. I don't know. I don't kind of chase that sort of vibe, but I mean, I can see the perception from the outside looking in.
People excited about, because everybody wants to be a tattooer nowadays.
You feel some of that when you're on a convention, and people actually know who you are, and you kind of get a little bit of that. But that's as far as I want to go in that direction.
Really? just within that bubble.
Yeah, a little bubble, a little recognition, but
taken outside of that environment when you're shopping for supplies for like paper towels to the convention. No one cares who you are.
Exactly. I remember back in the day, like having people photograph you. Like the first time I think it happened was at the first convention I did in Pennsylvania, and it's the weirdest fucking thing because all you're trying to do is do a nice tattoo, and people do tend to put you up on a bit of a pedestal, which is fucking awkward and weird.
I think after a while you sort of embrace it because you look up to other people and people are looking up to you, and it feels good, and
Well, I mean, there is definitely a thing where you do kind of just at a certain point you just go, okay, this is just the part where they
right. You're just playing a part.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I do still think it's fucking weird, especially when you go to different countries. I think going to foreign countries is probably the weirdest thing.
The weirdest thing was when me and you went to Italy. And you walk so fast, you're always walking ahead of me. And to see the people recognizing you from every direction was pretty fucking crazy.
Well, that was at the time when the
show aired while we were there.
And that was one of those things, like, that was definitely, I fucking hated it. Like, that is the most awkward shit. I thought it was
fucking hilarious because I was outside of it, like, looking in. And I was like, look.
Well, it fucking kills to watch.
It's so much fun to happen to someone else.
Exactly. It's
cab drivers yelling, hey, Joe.
Oh, dude. That was it. That was Florence, wasn't it?
Florence, yeah.
Because I remember wasn't it in Florence where we were walking down the street? And again, I was walking ahead of you guys. And you guys were like, Joe, stop. Yeah. And I turned around. And a guy was coming out of a store, and he's like, "Oh, Joe, and he stopped to take a photo."
Yep.
Yeah. Apparently, everybody loves
that. Happened that whole trip, though. It's funny to watch, but I don't want to be that person,
Not even for a day.
No. I mean, I don't know. Seemed like a lot.
It's not. You know what it is? It's like it is nice to. I guess it's nice to be recognized, but the problem being is that 9 times out of 10 happens in airports when all you want to do is get the fuck to your plane.
Right, sure.
So that definitely does kind of blow, Well, getting into what you were talking about as far as like the music, do you still play music and stuff, or
only for myself, really, or my kid? I get bored now.
It's
not the same. It's not the same. Instead of plugging into a full stack and then blasting the volume and then hearing everything, and now it's just me with an acoustic guitar, and then after like 5 minutes I'm like, nah,
it's just whatever. What kind of stuff do you like? What? So you had a pretty traditional. I mean, knowing Scotty, it was a fairly traditional apprenticeship.
It was a weird one to be honest.
Well, it's also Scotty.
Yeah, he did give me a chance, which I appreciated, and it was more. It's a type of apprenticeship where I was kind of. I learned from everybody in the shop, not just mainly from him, because he didn't like to be, especially when he's setting up. He liked his space.
He's definitely a certain type of person.
Yeah, and I love him, and I thank him for bringing me in, but there were some things that I had to like navigate around. Like I had to spend a lot of time in the drawing area. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? Because I remember like watching him set up, and then he was like, oh, it's just kind of like my sacred time. So kind of just, can you just step out? Stuff like that.
That's where you need to learn something. Yeah.
But then I'll go to other people, and I'll pretend like I'll be sweeping, and then I'll look and watch him set up.
Just guarding the secret of the setup.
Wait, so he never really got into like? Did he do like a setup thing for you, and then he would do his own thing separate from?
No.
Oh, for real?
It did-
You
it did-
never learned how to set up.
Not from. Not
How
from him.
long? How long did the
I was
did the
there for a
apprenticeship
year.
last?
But then we would after the shop would close, we'll hang out at night, and then I remember I'd have questions. I'm like, oh, what's a mag? What's a flat? What's this? You know, and then he used to demonstrate. I remember he was demonstrating how to move a mag with a pack of cigarettes because it was flat. You know, so it was like a magnified.
I can note the worst part is I could totally see fucking Scotty doing that, like grabbing a pack of cigarettes and just being
It's
like,
like, this is how you do it. You know, so I'm like, all right.
So it's safe to say it wasn't a phenomenal apprenticeship.
It was a very confusing apprenticeship.
Did you ever tattoo there? Or no.
I tattooed maybe 2 people there.
Oh, for real.
After about 9 months of just being in the shop 5 days a week. It's watching how everything works, how everybody works, and
Where did you end up going then? How did you end up getting into?
Well, what happened was my car broke down, and I had to quit my job. I had a part-time job at a supermarket at the time. But he was like, listen, if you want to make this work, you're going to have to come in here 100%. So, yeah, that's partially why I quit the band, too, is because he said, you can't be a part-time tattooer. So
Yeah.
You have to be all in.
It's a lot to ask somebody, especially. And having said that, asking that of somebody nowadays has got to be that much more difficult. You know what I mean? So back then, I don't remember it being that hard. You know what I mean? Like I was living at home when I apprenticed.
depends on your
and stuff.
age, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I was living at home, too, so my parents were helping me out. But I wasn't making any money at all at that shop. So after a while, my car broke down, and I told Scotty, I'm like, listen, I was like, you mind if I work maybe 1 or 2 days a week? There was a path mark maybe 2 blocks away from the shop. I was like, 1 or 2 days a week just so I can have some gas money to get here. So he's like, why don't you just work in the street shop by your place? And I'm like, well, is it not like kind of like I'm ditching
Right.
you?
Why won't he let you work there?
It's surprising that I know what it is. I honestly, with someone like Scott, I honestly believe it's an issue of not wanting any control over you and not wanting responsibility. Like Scotty is so fucking weird.
Looking back now, I feel like that's what happened. It was more convenient probably to just let me go and do that. You know,
he
but
brought you
I didn't
in.
quit. He didn't fire me. It was kind of just like a thing that was like, oh,
See,
just work there.
I didn't. It's funny. I didn't know any of this. Like just one day you weren't there anymore, and I was just like, okay, cool, whatever. You know. I mean, the one thing I did like about Scott is he had a lot of people come and go. Like he had a lot of Japanese friends coming into the shop. Was it the same
place.
Did
I actually got tattooed by one of them.
Who did you get tattooed by?
Takami.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really dug the fact that he had that much of a foreign influencers outside of, and they were all phenomenal tattooers. I mean, that's where I met Miyazo and Goach and all those guys from Chopstick and whatnot. But I was blown away by the talent that he was bringing in.
Yeah.
And I never understood, but after hearing certain stories, you do understand why the shop's no longer there. You know.
Right.
So where did you end up after that?
This place called Murder Inc.
Oh, you worked there?
I worked
great
there.
name.
I was there for almost a year too, but coming from Scotty shop and then going to a street shop that looked like that had no hot water, and I remember
That's like straight up like just shitty old school.
and I had my friends that used to visit me at Super 88, but I'm like, listen, you can come by, but I can't tattoo you because I'm not allowed to do that yet, you know. I'm like, but I was so proud of the place. And then at the street shop that I ended up in, I was like one of the guys already tattooing walk-ins, and
So the shop was busy right off
it was
the bat.
busy, yeah. But like I was embarrassed to invite people.
How were you like
murdering?
How were you doing as far as like the work? What was quality of the work that you were doing like at that point? Because I mean, you really had no
training really.
Yeah, and to get thrown into the deep end, which I don't think is a really bad way to do it.
I think that's the way to go, man. Because it forces you to do all the real basic stuff.
Well, let me ask you a question.
fundamentals.
Oh, yeah.
How much do you think a lot of people? Because I mean, we see a lot of really shitty tattooers, guys who own shops now, and I think that the reason why that works is it takes a certain type of person to be able to pull that shit off. To know, man, I really suck. I got to get better. I shouldn't be biting off more than I can chew.
Right.
You know.
Well, it's that balance between ego and knowing where your place is, and you know.
Ego, yeah, ego's a good way of putting it. 'Cause I think a lot of tattooers, even the shitty ones, have nothing but ego.
Right. If you
know?
have too much ego, then you're never gonna look back and see what you can improve on. You
Right.
know? You already think you're up there, so
Exactly.
depends on your mindset.
So how much ego did you have?
I had no ego at that time, but I had confidence. Is there a difference? I knew that I
No,
had
confidence
a lot
is
to
solid.
learn.
That's good.
Yeah.
I knew I had a lot to learn, and I wasn't there yet. But I just knew that I wasn't going to get it from that place, from that shop. But I knew that I was tattooing almost every day, and I wasn't allowed to do anything bigger than my hand, which was kind of responsible for a place like that.
Yeah, that's incredibly
Yeah,
responsible because a lot of times all they want is the fucking money.
Yeah.
Like I think it's more important that you just fucking make money, you know, for them than it is that you become a better tattooer. Because I don't think they really cared that much about the quality of the work that was
Right.
coming out of the shop.
It was kind of confusing at times too, though, because I remember sitting around and somebody wanted to get a tattoo and like, oh, you got time? And I'm like, yeah, just give me a few minutes. I'm gonna try to draw something up. And then the owner was like, Marvin, tell him you're booked for a week. Book him for next week. You just want to look busy, you know? I'm like,
Well, look busy but not be busy.
but I'm like, but I could do it right now.
Right.
It's like, yeah, but why not just do it now? No, but the worst part is I do understand that mentality because, like, you do want to put on airs of, you know, you're busier than you actually are. I mean,
Yeah.
we see it all the time. It's like books closed, and then it's like a week later, it's like I had a cancellation.
Right,
Who wants to
right.
get in? You know.
But if you're considered a street shop, I don't understand that mentality. Just get them in.
Yeah, street shop, I think it's more important. It was always my impression back in the day when I first started tattooing that it was just like, if they're in the fucking door,
Right.
you're doing the fucking tattoo.
Right.
If it's 10 o'clock at night, we don't close till whenever.
That's it, yeah.
That's, you know, we could put 11 o'clock on the door, but if someone rolls in here at 10:30,
You're
and
doing
the
it.
tattoo takes an hour and a half, you're doing the tattoo.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
We also sold bongs at that shop.
it just keeps getting better and better.
This place still around?
No, not
No?
anymore.
Okay.
Not anymore. I actually ran into. I ignored him. I saw him at a bar years ago in
Yeah.
Bayside when I moved back to Bayside, and I sat down and I saw him there. I was just like the whole time. I was like this. And he had a puppy with him, and it kept coming into our like little banquette area. I was like,
It's like, just ignore the dog. Just ignore the fucking dog. Oh, for fuck's sake. So where did you end up after that play? I mean, so regardless, it was still a good
it
learning
was good.
experience.
I was able to move out of my parents' house, and I was able to pay rent on my own, which I was proud of doing. And then I bought my first shitty car by myself with the money that I made. So granted, I did a bunch of tribal, whatever. You know, I loved it at the time. Kanjis.
Oh, kanji. Back then, kanji.
That was paid. I
shit.
paid my rent with those things.
Yeah. Because it was just quick, fucking easy money. I think back in the day, we used to get like $50 to $80 to do a kanji.
Yeah.
If I
Oh
remember
yeah, that's
correctly.
right. It was about $80.
Yeah.
I enjoyed those, man.
Huh?
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed tribal.
I remember getting to the point where it was like, all you were trying to do is figure out how to make it look interesting. Like, it had
Right.
nothing more to do than like, all right, I know I can do this solid. I know I can do a nice
Mm-hmm.
outline. Let me do brush strokes.
Right.
You know?
Right.
You should really focus on the points.
The
nice,
wisp,
nice
the
points.
flow.
Exactly. Try to get things that it worked in a way that you did something halfway creative with
Yeah.
it, you know? So,
Yeah, with those kanjis, I had I'm not gonna name names, but I had like coworkers that would watch me work too. And like, oh, so you set up a liner and a mag to do a kanji in front of the client, you know? I'm like, yeah, you know, how do you fill it in, right? It's not like a shader. You shade with it, or it's like, no, professionals just use a round, or like if you're lineman,
that's so, okay, when I first started tattooing...
or the same liner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, so that's
Yeah.
exactly when I first started tattooing. We used to do this one little tiny jacquardy. It was like a rose that literally everybody in the shop did a couple of times a day. So you had 4 guys working. That thing got tattooed at least a dozen times over the course of the day between everybody. And I remember originally it was a tight 3 and a 4 flat, and then it got to a point where you did the entire tattoo with a tight 3 because you could just knock it out. But it took me, I'd say 6 months to get to that point where I was like, I felt confident enough to tattoo with a tight 3.
Right.
And actually did. Now you look at it, everybody's fucking using tight
Yeah.
3s now, you know.
Also-
And they're doing tattoos this fucking big.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
whip shading and bullshit, and you're just like, what the fuck, whatever, you know.
There's also one less tooth to scrub at the end of the day.
Well, yeah, back then that was a legit thing. It's like having to worry about like how many fucking needles you used and how many tubes you had to clean it, because the next day everything had to go in the autoclave. Either they would sit in the autoclave that night, and then the next morning, first guy in, as you're mopping and sweeping, everything is fucking everything gets autoclaved at night. The next morning. This way, by the time everybody walks in, the 50-minute cycle or whatever is done.
Yeah.
So
the sound of the ultrasonic at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that I think about that all the time. The shit you hear about, like how ultrasonic everything, technically everything within like a 20-foot distance of the ultrasonic, you're breathing in all that vapor.
That makes
that's
sense.
something that nobody. Yeah, dude, it's one of those things when you think about it, you legitimately think about it. Like, I remember back in the day, we used to have an ultrasonic, a little tiny ultrasonic in our station with the cup in it, and they used to dip into that. And I remember years later, it was like, yeah, you shouldn't do that. I'm like, why? And it's like, because everything within a certain radius of that ultrasonic,
spreading out.
It just becomes basically fucking ground zero.
I mean, I used to clean my tubes with no gloves, so been there, done that.
Yeah, I used to clean tubes and needles at the end of the night. And like the first probably 3 months, like just scrubbing tubes and needles, and not thinking anything of it.
Nope.
You know.
Yeah.
Made worse by the fact that the guy who apprenticed you didn't even care to think about it. You know. I remember with the spray bottles, because back then we used to use spray bottles for everything, and dude, none of our spray bottles were ever covered. So you just grab bloody gloves and spray bottle the whole thing, and it's just like the same thing. You aerosol everything that you hit with the scan. I mean, dude, the more I think about the stupid shit that we did coming up, you know, and the fact of the matter is, we didn't have the health department come in and tell us, well, you can't do that.
Right.
It was basically somebody else in our trade going, you know, that's not a good thing. You should maybe do it this way. Use squirt bottles, not spray bottles. Get away from the ultrasonic. Not that. It didn't take the government telling us that. We were kind of self-regulated from that perspective.
We were sort of doing good compared to the previous generation that was doing one ink bottle for the whole day or whatever.
Oh yeah,
they would use, or one ink cap full of ink.
Oh, I mean, that was a legit thing. Stanley and Walter Moskowitz out on Long Island. I mean, when a friend of mine went to get tattooed by them back in, this would have been 90, I don't know, probably 96, maybe 96, 97. Dave Atenito, he went there, walked up, and he's like, I want to get tattooed by both of you. And they were just like, okay, kid, no problem. Went in the back, fucking grabbed a bunch of stencils, and they pull out this big fucking, like Battle Royale stencil, and they're like, what about on your and he's, whoa, dude. Like, I'm just looking to catch a little tattoo. And they're like, okay, well, what do you think? And he's like, I don't know, maybe a fucking bird? So they pull out a swallow. He picks a bunch of swallows. He picks one out, and he gets Stanley to do one, Walter to do the other. Shit's already been set up. They didn't have to break down or set up everything. Machines are ready. Inks are all laid out. Fucking, there's a little dollop of fucking Vaseline. There's a little fucking piece of paper towel on top that they removed to fucking be like, okay, it's a sterile situation here. Squirt bottle, a little fucking a little bit of Listerine into each of the paper cups that they used to dip into, the souffle cups. And he got tattooed, one in one station, one in the other station. So that's like double jeopardy. Yeah, double jeopardy. And that shop, I don't think it was busy, but it wasn't slow.
Yeah.
And that was a legit, like, you walked in there, was still tobacco stains on the walls and stuff like that. It was pretty cool.
So you would want to get tattooed first then, right? Because at the end of the day, what do you get, plasma?
Oh, here's the problem with that. There's a good chance that the stations were never taken down.
Yeah, right.
Like, I'm guessing.
Oh, from the night before.
Yeah. Oh, I'm guessing from like the previous week. I'm guessing like I said, because back then it was powder pigment, and powders are pretty much like alcohol based and Listerine based. So at the end of every night or the beginning of every day, they just take a little bit of alcohol, a little bit of Listerine, and they spray it into the ink caps and then just fucking give it a swirl. Yeah. And the idea is that alcohol kills everything, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, it was. I can't say that this is something I was told by him. I've only seen them in action at the Philly convention, and that was pretty scary too. The Philly show.
I've heard the stories. I've never experienced it
I've watched
firsthand.
him tattoo at the convention, and it's pretty.
Yeah?
Fun. It's pretty fun to watch. I like how I remember he's like wiping, and then the garbage can was behind him, but he would just throw the paper towel. And
Stanley?
And there would be a pile next to the garbage can of used paper towels.
So which finger? It was his right finger that he I guess the story. And again, I might be incorrect, but I'm pretty certain the story I had heard. He punched somebody with a a straight razor in his hand, and he cut it, I guess the tendons in his hand, so he had one finger, like his middle finger wouldn't close. So I remember one night we left Scotty's, and I think they had closed S&W at this point. Mm-hmm. And we had left Scotty's because Stanley used to go there on the regular, and we're all hanging out one night, and he's like, "Oh, we're gonna go to the diner. You're gonna come with?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah, dude! I want to sit here and talk to Stanley. I fucking love this guy. He's super nice, you know." And we went out to the diner, and Stanley's sitting across from me, and he's drinking his coffee, and the whole time he's drinking, he's got his finger out like this, and he's just kind of like, and I'm like, motherfucker. but then I had heard the story that he had. So I can't remember if that was the hand he tattooed with. I don't recall. If anybody knows, write it in the comments. I'd love to know.
Man,
so
I think he was a scrapper, huh?
Oh, back in the day?
Yeah,
dude, the stories are fucking phenomenal. I mean, a lot of them made that Mike McCabe book. I think it was Tattooing in New York. I have it on my shelf.
Yeah, I
here.
know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's like fucking when that book came out, it was a pretty big deal for New York. You know what I mean? So, and that's when they were still in the Bowery and stuff before they moved to Long Island, which is funny that they ended up. Well, I guess it makes sense. You either tattoo underground, or you move to the next place, which is Long Island, which is, you know. And again,
so how far were you from where the shop, Murder Inc. and all that stuff? So
I grew up in Lindenhurst, which is like literally halfway out on the South Shore of Long Island. But I worked in Center Ridge, which was like kind of towards the North Shore and further east.
So you were pretty aware of like.
Oh, so S&W, like I was in Lindenhurst, and S&W was in Copiague, which is the next town over. Yeah. So I used to drive by like every day. We drive by, you know, S&W on the way going into Nassau County, like Massachusetts, Massapequa and stuff, where Scotty was and stuff. Yeah. So I knew the shop was there, but I didn't know anything about it at the time. When I first started tattooing, it was just two old guys that had been there since I was a kid, you know. So I never thought of it. And then, like I said, as things blew up with New York and the tattooing and the scene and everything, and now you got a lot of guys that are you know, like kind of reminiscing all the old school stuff, and everybody wants to be an old school tattooer because I think people wanted to be an old school tattooer more than they wanted to be a Japanese guy, you know, at that time. So yeah, I the first time I went to see those guys was with Civ. And before he left to go home, we jumped, you know, we stopped in Copiague and talked to those guys. It was fun. It was cool. And again, you know, considering how rough and tumble their history was, super nice. You know, it was super fun. And again, I think they were just appreciative for the younger generation. And I know towards the end, they were just super appreciative to have this younger generation actually admiring what they did. Right. And I thought that was super cool. Yeah. You know, like, so that was after you had left is when Stanley started hanging out at Superstition, Electric Superstition.
I didn't even know that he was hanging out there.
Yeah, he used to hang out there almost every single night. He just, when Scotty got his knuckles, removed. Remember I was telling you about, was it you that had silver nitrate? Shane had silver nitrate put on his finger when he almost cut off his finger.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, the injury.
So, fucking, Scotty had fuck written across his knuckles. Mm-hmm. And he was like, man, I got to get rid of these this is disgusting. I can't, it's just, that's not me anymore, you know, whatever. It was probably never him. But he talks to Stanley about it, and I guess he just brought it up in passing, like, oh yeah, I want to get this removed. And Stanley's like, I can remove that. And he's like, okay, whatever, you know. So one night, Stanley fucking calls him up. He's like, hey, Scotty, you're going to be there for a little bit? And he's like, yeah. He goes, I'm going to bring my kit with me, and we're going to remove those knuckles for you. And the kit. Oh, dude! And when he showed up, he had it was like a little doctor's bag, you know, like the old like little medicine bags they used to bring to a fight or something like that. Yeah. And he opens it up, and he's like, well, what do you want me to set up for you? He's like, set me up like a loose 9. And he's like, okay. He sets him up a fucking loose 9, and he fucking pours out a little thing of alcohol. And then he puts like I think he puts a powder in it, and it was some kind of like acid, basically. And then he put out another. He had another little brown bottle, little vial. He puts down on the counter, and he fucking he takes the machine that Scotty set up for him. He's like bam, 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 bam. And he's like okay, and he goes bang, just fucking grinds this shit up. And he fucking dips into the fucking cap, and Scotty's got his knuckles on the fucking thing, and he just fucking buries it. And Scotty said he just watched all the fucking liquid pour out and then just run down his finger. And he's fucking just drills into the fucking knuckles, gets it all done. He pulls out the vial, and he pulls out fucking a cotton swab like that long, like we stuck up a fucking fighter's nose. And Scotty said you could tell everything in the bag was old. And he opens the thing. He goes, "This is silver nitrate." And he fucking opens it up, dips it in there, and he just proceeds to cauterize the wound. So now I talk to Scotty 2 days later. He tells me this whole fucking horror story, and I'm like, "Oh my god!" And he's like, "Dude, my whole like it hurts into my armpit." Now his mom at the time was a nurse. So I'm like, "Have you been to the hospital?" He's like, "Yeah, I just came from there." And I'm like, "What did they say?" And he goes, "Yeah, I got like 3rd-degree burns."
Yeah, of course.
I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding?" I was like, "Can you
Nightmare
send me a photo?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll send you a photo." And it's funny, the reason why Shane, when he cut the tip of his finger off, you can tell it looked the same because it literally was like a fucking trench of scab, like just dark fucking scab wherever he ran the machine and opened up the flesh. But all the flesh around it literally looked like you took a fucking black Sharpie marker and fucking outlined the entire thing around it. And I'm like, "Dude, what did you outline it with the Sharpie?" He goes, "No, that's burnt flesh." I'm like, and it's funny because at first I didn't believe it, but years later seeing Shane's finger and the same thing, it's the same gross indented scab and then just black flesh all around it where the silver nitrate burned it. Fucking crazy.
Well, the question would be, did it work?
No, it fucking like a couple months later, it was still fucking. I mean, it took him. I don't think he could tattoo for like literally like a month or a couple of weeks, and then like I said, you could still see the tattoo. It wasn't surprisingly though. It wasn't scarred up. So apparently that's what you want to do.
No, I didn't see that.
Oh, dude. Well, like I said, that was towards.
I used to visit him, once every few months after I left because I wanted to stay friends and I wanted to keep my like foot in the door.
So how did you end up like? We talked about like Ink Nation and stuff like that. Keith Caramelo had started the Sketch Cult, which was another great online message board that you can get on and stuff like that. Where did you end up? Like, where did you put the most amount of time in? Would you say? Like once you left Murder Inc., where was the
Once
next?
I left Murder Inc., I actually went to Keith's shop. I ended up at Custom Culture, and I was there for 3 years.
And that's when
I met Christian.
Is that when you guys met?
Yeah.
So, after 3 years, like you only worked there a short period of time. We talked about this.
I was only there for almost a year. 1 year, yeah.
That was almost a year. Yeah. Okay. Anything you want to touch on that shop? Or I know Kristen kind of avoided. He didn't want to get too into it, but
which is cool because it's not like we talk about it a lot. It's not all bad. It's not all bad.
He's not all bad.
We learned a lot. We learned a lot of what not to do. For me personally, a lot. Maybe presentation, like how you present yourself. I learned that. He was good at marketing and packaging.
Right.
And merchandise,
which nowadays is imperative. Like you really need to be able to find a certain audience. You really do need to be able to market yourself in a way that people are going to enjoy being in your company. Although again, with the younger generation of people, I don't think most people care that much about the cool guy shop anymore.
For all the faults that Keith had, his strong suit was that he actually took us as a group and made us feel like not like a band, but he sort of like presented us way better than I thought we were.
Right.
And he pushed us out to magazines. He took us out to conventions. I think it was
was
your
our
first convention?
Was
my first convention, his first convention, first magazine. So that was the upside of me and Keith. He did like show us that you do have to put in work in that realm as far as marketing,
right?
The way you present and
like people aren't
push
going to
yourself.
Find you,
right?
And want to talk to you,
right?
You have to like.
Our first convention, we had banners this big with our faces on it. That was all him.
Oh God! Nowadays, that's like a fucking thing. Jesus Christ! The Ink Master. Look at me, fucking Ink Master. Season 6.
We had that a while ago, man, and it worked.
We had our work wrapped around his car. Remember, he had his car wrapped.
Yep.
Yeah, dude. So again, when Keith, I worked with Keith my 2nd or 3rd year tattooing at Lotus, and again, he had us. I don't want to use the word hoodwinked, but yeah, I mean, like when we hired him, I don't remember how long he lasted the first time, but we let him go, or I should say Tom and Siv let him go. The second time we hired him back, I had started hanging out with Keith again, and we were doing. He was doing some printing for me and whatnot because he was big into printing his own stuff at the time, which was great because nobody was doing that. And it was good. I was like, man, maybe we should think of hiring Keith back. And Civ looked at me and he goes, dude, here's the thing. He goes, we can hire him back, but I'm going to let you know right fucking now when we have to fire him. And you're gonna fucking fire him. And I was just like, man, whatever. He's changed. I don't think he lasted 6 months.
Did you have to fire him?
I had to fire him. Yeah, I had to let him go. And it's funny because I remember him saying like he had quit, and I'm like, no, you got fired. You fucking got fired. But that was a big fucking deal. That wasn't. He was pretty. And again, I get it. It's a shitty situation made worse by the fact that one of the reasons we let him go was a personal thing in the shop and stuff, and it was. I'd like to say it was beyond his control, but that would be wrong.
So there was a crew before you showed up there, right?
A crew
that left Keith's place?
Yeah, I think Pon was there and Matt Vancura were both there. But I was there with Matt Vancura for maybe a month, and then he left.
Right.
In bad terms.
Of course.
Well, dude, I mean, I told you that. Like, when I hired you, he was, like, trying to shit-talk you, and I'm like, dude, you know what? I'm not taking your word for any of this shit.
Yeah, I try not to speak negative of Keith, because, like I said, there was a good side of him, and I'm appreciative of the things that I learned from him, but there was a lot of bad.
That's why we became so close.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we felt like we were, like, prisoners back there. I explained to you that, you've been there.
Yeah.
Giant shop. Work area was the size of a fucking closet, and me and Marvin were back there, like having to tattoo and sell his merch. It was just a weird situation, but I got to meet Marvin.
I think that's what blew my mind with that. I mean, because he was one of the first shops to actually push things in that direction, where it was a store as well as a tattoo shop.
The store looked amazing. Like, you walked in there, I was impressed. I did like 3 guest spots before I started working there. It was amazing. The whole situation was cool until I actually got to meet the real him.
Yeah.
Then it flipped.
Yeah.
So.
Which was immediately after.
It was, yeah. As soon as he knew I was there for good. Yeah.
Well, and to be honest, that was the same thing when he came to work for us. He was like super straight and narrow. The moment he hung something on the wall, I swear to God, it was like you invited a poltergeist into the house. And as soon as he had something on the wall, it was like all bets are off. I'm fucking here. Like, his pants come down. He's walking around the house in his butt, like in his underwears. Dude, it was that dramatic. It was so much. But again, that was also at a time where everybody was a bit of a character and everybody had their own thing, a way of dealing with clients. Right. And again, that's the kind of stuff that makes people, like, he had his own clientele. Like, people would come in and be like, I want to get tattooed by Keith again. And we're like, cool, Keith's here, Wednesday, whatever.
The dude was talented, man. He's just got, issues like everybody else does.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
He taught me how to search for guidance, how to search for, like, how to self-educate yourself with art,
Right.
I signed up for I don't know how many workshops and seminars I signed up for.
Right.
That I never would have thought of signing up, traveling somewhere just to learn.
Well, he was one of the first people I know, same thing, that used to do a lot of the workshops and stuff like that. Used to go to the workshops, and then he started bringing people in.
Yeah,
That's where I met Alberto Ruiz there. Right. The other cat, the painter, I couldn't remember his name last time.
DeVries?
No, DeVries was another one. He came up to our shop because after I'd met him, I made a point in inviting him to do shows with us and stuff.
Yeah.
So DeVries had come up and did a workshop with us, which was a lot of fun. I mean, again, it's not all bad, obviously, but where did you end up after that?
So after that, I didn't want to. I think you and I can share this, that we didn't want to work for anyone anymore after that. So that's when we worked privately. We tattooed in New Haven.
Yep. We opened up our own little studio. It was like a loft apartment on top of this industrial type building, and we had a great time.
We had a great time. Like, that setting was awesome with the old elevator that opens up.
Yeah. Dude, New Haven's got some great old buildings.
Yeah, it was great.
How did you like moving from Long Island to New York? Or were you still living in Queens and commuting back and forth to Long Island?
I was still going back. Well, from Long Island to.
Well, like, so when you were working for Keith, were you living on the island, or were you still living in Queens?
I was still living in Queens.
Okay.
So it wasn't that bad.
Right.
It was probably like a half hour. So it wasn't terrible.
How different was it moving from New York to Connecticut? Connecticut's fucking weird.
it was different because I didn't know anybody. I knew Christian. I felt like I followed you around for like a year because I knew no one, you know. And it was hard for me to get clients. And I ended up actually, just to make rent, I would drive down to New York and tattoo people in their houses. And then once I get what I needed for rent, I'll drive back up here.
Well, I mean, it's understandable too. You're fucking fairly new to the business.
Yeah,
a few years
4 years in.
Yeah, and it's like moving to a foreign state, and then working in a private studio. How did you? You were tattooing mainly friends and stuff.
Oh, I had a pretty good clientele already. So coming from New York, where we had all this pressure, I felt like it was nice to like not have that pressure, because we were living and working in the same building. So like our need for money was kind of way lower than if we had a separate shop. So I only had to do one tattoo a day, and that's all I did. I did one tattoo a day, and then I painted the rest of the day. And eventually he got really busy too.
It's funny how things haven't changed much.
Exactly. Actually, yeah, you're right.
Well, one of the things I wanted to talk to both of you about was as a general thing. You're both painters. I know the earlier portion of my career, like a majority of my career, I mean, I was big into painting, big into creating outside of tattooing, you know what I mean? And I did have a need to do it. I don't know if it overwhelmed the need to tattoo, you know what I mean? Like, while I do love tattooing, and I did love painting, I've walked away from a lot of the painting and creative outside of being on the skin. And I think most of that it's personal for me and mental, in all honesty. I don't think it's like I just don't want to do it. I just mentally getting over that block, which has been quite a few years now.
Well, yeah, I feel like since I started working here, like I've seen the decline. Not that you're not doing art, but like you're not like
I'm not in the studio
banging things out the way you used to. I don't know what that is.
I don't know either. I wish I could tell you. I mean, I don't know if it's getting old, but different state of mind. It's a number of different things. And that was part of the reason I wanted to do the podcast, was to glean a little bit of something off of other people and whatnot. But again, this is just an excuse for not doing the other thing. But how important is it to you? Like, we've kind of talked about it before, because you're about as prolific as anybody I know right now. I mean, you stay busier than most of the people in the illustration and fine art world.
But it's just habits, though. It's like working out. You work out every day. You want to work out the next day. So whatever you do, 2 weeks prior, you're gonna want to do today.
Right.
And if you haven't done something in years, then it's gonna be hard to get back into it.
Oh yeah, tell me about it.
There you go.
What about you? Like how much do you, like you said, you still paint pretty often?
I still paint, maybe not as much as Christian does, but I'm always set up at home. I have a home studio, and it's all just for painting.
Right.
I paint all the time.
Now, you're working at Black Sails now on Long Island, right? That's in Copeg or Amityville, right?
That's in Sayville.
What about the shop there? Is there the nice thing about this shop is we have everything kind of in house. In the beginning, when we were downtown, we used to have we didn't really have studio space in the shop because it was just a gallery space in the front, and then everybody had a 10x10 room. So if I wanted to paint, I could do it in my room, but there wasn't a separate environment to do it. So I had everyone's stuff set up at home. Right. When we moved here 6 years later, everything is in-house. Like, he's got a studio. His room is big enough that he could set up there. We have a upstairs where I have a little studio space. Phil uses it. And he's got a whole fucking, toy. It's like fucking Santa's workshop. The amount of all these 3D sculptures and 3D printers and stuff like that. Does the shop that you work at have anything like that, or?
We don't do any art like that. That's the one thing I love the shop. But that's the one thing I'm missing is that environment where after you tattoo, people kind of just go back to their paintings and things that they're working on.
Right.
It's not set up there. Everyone's just there to tattoo, and then once they're done tattooing, they can go home.
Right. I mean, I know with Christian, like, at the end of the day, you're done with your tattoo, and 9 times out of 10, he's staying here. And if you're not, it's usually to go to do jujitsu or do something else.
Yeah.
I feel like if it's excuse me, already set up, it's easy to just jump on it and then put an hour or two here and there.
Right.
Yeah, same. Again, same thing. It was the kind of thing that I'd stay here a lot more back in the day than I have in the last several years. But everything is here. I mean, it's like it's not like we don't have it, which is great. For me, it was important at one time. And again, I think a lot of it is just that when you get into a certain groove, you want to keep that happening. And it's,
for sure.
I think that's been part of the thing with the iPad. Is one of the things I like about it is I'm most creative, or my brain is is most active in the morning, like at 7 o'clock in the morning. I get up, have my coffee, and I'll just and use my iPad and fuck around on the iPad. For a long time, it would just be, okay, pull out your sketchbook and do drawings in the sketchbook. And I did that for quite a few years. And like I said, I just started falling off. I still do the iPad sketching, but to me, it's just not as visceral. It's not the same. Like as much as I.
We were just talking about that, like the difference between paper and iPad, and
you can never replicate.
Yeah, just the feel of it and all that.
Yeah, that's probably one of the most difficult things I think to get over. And it's like it's been the one. So let me ask you a question. What are your thoughts on that alone? Like, I had a big. I didn't have an argument with Matt Triano from fucking Honest Tattooer in New York, but there was a conversation where his New Year's resolution was he was going to create a painting once a month. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, well, is it going to be a digital painting or is it going to be a physical painting? Right. And his thing was, oh, no, it's going to be digital. I only work digitally. I'm like, well, then it's not a fucking painting. And it sparked a shit show of conversation. Yeah. And having said that, I don't look at digital art as not being art. When you say painting, say digital painting. Don't say painting, because when you say that, it just fucker. A bunch of people just texted me. Because when you say that, it just makes people believe that, oh yeah, so it's a physical painting. Like, what are your thoughts on it?
It depends on what time period you grew up in. Like if you grew up where digital was accessible, then you would consider that more of art as opposed to us that we want a physical medium. But I feel like they're both.
Oh, I'm
considered a painting to a certain extent.
Oh no! I'm not putting it down. That's not my intention.
I know, but it's just for me personally. I like the physical object, but I can see the argument of a digital painting being as good.
Now let me ask you a question. Do you think it's worth the same amount of money?
No. Although some of it is like more effort. Right. I'm not taking away from effort because there is a lot of work.
Mm-hmm. I would totally agree with that. I think that it takes me longer to produce a sheet of fucking flash in the iPad than it does for me to do a physical sheet of flash. What about you? What are your thoughts?
I agree with you too. I see more value in it. Maybe it's just my perception of what value is when it's tangible, when it's in front of you and it's one of a kind, as opposed to something that you can print out
and just reproduce over and over and over again.
Yeah, there's something about selling prints off of an original piece. And that puts more value in the original piece. I don't know.
I think that was the coolest thing I remember, because I've sold a couple of paintings in the past 5 years that I'm like, fuck, why did I let that go? Like, I don't even have a print. Like the IMC, when we did IMC,
that was a good painting.
That painting was probably that was probably the last big, real painting I think I've ever done.
The last time actually, your airbrush has been on a couple times, but there's some stuff you started and never finished.
Yeah, never finished. But that's probably my favorite thing I'd ever done, and. I don't know, it was after COVID, I was just like, fuck it. I don't know why, I was purging, I don't know what the fuck was going through my head. But I let that painting and several other ones go. And I think the only reproduction of that I have is a print that I had made that was returned because it got damaged in shipping. So it's got a little stain in the bottom corner. And I even sold the print that I had framed to hang at a show. I was just like, oh, such a dickhead. Such a dickhead. How much? So I know for a fact that you sell it quite a bit. How much?
I used to sell it quite a bit.
Well, things have changed. Yeah.
But original paintings?
Yeah.
Honestly, like when I paint for myself, the stuff that I like, no one buys it. So it ends up in my house, which is cool because it inspires me. But I do sell commission paintings, and it's just portraits of people's families.
I noticed you've been doing a lot of those lately. How's that going as far as commissions? How often are you getting them?
Not that often.
But are you promoting? Is that something you're promoting, or just?
It's not something that I want to do all the time.
Right.
Well, I would imagine, portrait artists are their own thing. You know what I mean? Like, if you're a good portrait artist, that's amazing. But I think you have to have a real love for it. It's like reproductions of a tattoo. Like, yeah, you can do it, but do you really enjoy doing it? I wonder how many people. I know for a fact, like there are certain artists that can reproduce anything. Whether it be a painting or in a tattoo, or paint or as a tattoo, and I think that's impressive. But do you get the same rise out of recreating something? I know personally I don't, but do you think everybody at the same rise out of recreating something and just being like, oh my God, I fucking nailed it. And like, that's fucking amazing. I fucking, look what I did. I know me personally, the handful of times that I got to something that I should be impressed by, I was kind of like, yeah, cool, whatever.
I think there is that category of artists who like really like to master something that they're replicating. You know, like you see it, some of the TikTok videos of them doing color pencil photorealism, like sneakers or whatever. Like that's the thing, you know, and that's cool. But
my whole thing is, I've often wondered, like, if you could do that, you know, and you've actually hit on this or changed up a little bit. Like, if you can do that, why aren't you creating something like, whether it be a diorama? What's that girl's name? Julie. We met her at IMC. Julie Beck. Dude, she is tremendous artist. But she's figured out a way to do these beautiful dioramas or like these still lifes. And at that point, they are still lifes. But she's created her own little thing.
Right.
She's not just taking a photograph of a pair of sneakers and just reproducing it to the best of her ability. She's just doing these beautiful fucking things. You're now doing something similar to that with that program, the model, the figure program, where you're able to create your own environments, and then use that as your reference.
It's just you being a director of your whatever subject you're trying to paint. You know, like it could be, you know, cups or whatever, as long as you compose it the way you want. I think it has part of your personality in it. You know?
I feel like that's important too, rather than Googling something, or you know, if you set something up yourself, you took the photo yourself, so it's all coming from you still, and then you're gonna paint from that.
Right.
And I think with that, you also have your own. You can have your own thumbprint. You can have your own vibe happening, even though it's something it's a bunch of photos or a bunch of items you've put together, but you could still do it in a way that nobody else is going to really recreate it in a sense. You know what I mean? It still looks like something you did.
Yeah.
There was a guy named Jamie. It's not Jamie Sheen. Fuck, what's his name? He used to work at Nico back in the day.
I know you're talking.
Yeah, and he used to do a lot of floral stuff, and he actually started doing something where he would create his own. He'd go out, buy the bouquets, and then create his own, you know, buy a sugar skull, whatever, and then make his own photo reference from that.
Right.
I don't follow him anymore. I lost touch. I don't remember. It's Jamie something from California. Nico worked with him for a time. But yeah, I love that. I think that was a great way. That's the next step, I think, in photo reproduction when it comes to that, because you're creating it.
But what do you feel is the downside of digital stuff? Like, what do you think doesn't bring it to that level? As far as like,
for me personally, it's just the idea there's not an original. Like I've stopped purchasing prints of stuff. Like, I mean, you've seen how many prints I have. I have drawers full of prints. And it's not because I don't like the art. It's just that I want the originals. Everything that's hanging on the walls in this room is an original. With the exception of maybe one or two things, and one or two things that I did, you know what I mean? And then maybe one or two other ones. But for the most part, everything in this room is original, and I think that's really what. I mean, dude, there's something to be said for having the original fucking painting. Like you know, Jackie's stuff is a perfect example. Like, when you look at that thing in person, and you look at any of her originals in person, they print really well. Oh yeah, they're amazing. But when you look at the original, you're just like, holy fucking shit! Like, I'm blown away from it. I've never put down digital. To me, it's not. It just doesn't have the same weight that an original does. You know. And again, not putting it down, I just don't feel it doesn't have the same. Doesn't have it for me. Same thing with old hand painted flash. You know, even the flash we used to do with colored pencils and stuff. Like, I want to do stuff like that again. It's just a matter of getting over myself and doing it. You know.
It's a convenience factor too.
Oh, I think that's the main thing. I think that's probably the biggest letdown for me. It's like, you're so fucking lazy. Right. You can't just pull out a sketchbook and do the fucking drawing. You're doing it on your iPad. And again, there is the convenience of just being able to fucking print it and just run with it.
It's so convenient. It's almost like meant for tattooing, you know, the way the Procreate program is.
Don't say that too loud. We don't want people to fucking...
It's the best light box.
It is, man.
Dude, it's funny. I was shocked it took Eric as long as it did. I mean, he literally just got on the tip like a month ago. Like, he was still, him and Phil were the only, like, Marvin was commenting about our light table upstairs. Like, with this huge fucking 8-foot light table.
Just taking pictures of
it. Yeah, he's taking pictures like it's a relic.
Well, not for nothing. It is kind of a fucking relic. It's funny. But it is one of those things where it's like, I mean, we all use it too. If we're reproducing, if we're doing a painting, and I can work off of, if I'm working off of paper, I'll use it all the time.
Yeah,
I mean, I have a light table at home that I still have. Haven't used it in a couple of years, but I still have it. But yeah, again, like I think it has become such a useful tool for this fucking business.
Yeah, similar argument could be made though, back when like airbrushing came out.
Oh,
Do you think there was an argument between like acrylic oils and airbrush?
Yeah.
Like people didn't feel like it was like
it wasn't
relevant.
like a real medium,
Right.
And back then my response was, yeah, try.
Right.
I was like, you could say whatever you fucking want. You pick up an airbrush and you
Right.
fuck with it. It fucking sucks.
Yeah.
It is a temperamental bitch. But I'm used to it, and I had an easier time controlling that than I did with paint and brushes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's funny, having said that, one of the things I love about colored pencil and the little bit of acrylic work that I do is it's mixed. Everything I do is mixed media. So it's probably gonna have some markers in it or some watercolor, then airbrush on top of that, and then some colored pencils on top of that, and then more airbrush, and then going back in with an acrylic paint and doing because with me, what I love, airbrushing is wonderful, but to get the texture that that a brush can create is so much more difficult with just the airbrush by itself.
Right.
And again, not having said, there's an artist named Jay Ferguson up in Canada. Tremendous, amazing fucking artist. And he does everything with an airbrush, a little bit of paintbrush, but the textures he achieves, they're tight. It's super nice. And actually, that's him. That's the Bride of Frankenstein. Again, that's an original.
Yeah.
AI. What are your thoughts on AI? Because that's something that kind of blows my mind with how I guess it's the same as the digital thing. How tattooers have really kind of like lobbed onto it and just been like, oh yeah, it's here to stay. Fucking love this shit.
It's not going away.
What are your thoughts?
I think it's just too easy, and I mean, we all used to search Google, and people used to say, just don't get the first one and just scroll like to the 20th page. Be original.
Be original.
I mean, AI is tricky because I do think it's cool, and it's adding to our visual vocabulary. But I know when I see it, when people tattoo it straight from the printer, I can recognize that it's not completely original.
That was one of the things that I once said is like, do you think that AI is literally changing the way the tattoo industry looks at how they create their art, between the color palettes that are being used, between the lighting effects that are being created, between the amount of the way the shadows fall on figures and flowers and stuff like that? Because even though it's AI and everything's supposed to be original, 9 times out of 10 you look at an AI image and you know exactly, oh, that's fucking AI.
Yeah, there's no way the person came up with that.
Yeah,
out of nowhere.
Yeah, out of nowhere, exactly. Like the crazy neon lights and that's why I don't think it's great for tattooing, because a lot of the lighting effects and stuff that it relies on looks great in print. I just don't think that's going to last very long in tattooing when you're using bright yellows and pinks and light blues as your highlight and rim light effects. Those are the first colors that tend, if they're not put in properly, and I'm not going to say it's going to do it on everybody, but if it's not put in properly, those are the first colors that you're going to, when you look at that tattoo in 10 years, you're going to be like, oh yeah, whatever, dude, that's shit.
Yeah.
I always have mixed feelings about AI.
Have you ever done anything with it? I've never seen you do anything
I messed
with it.
around with it. I have an app. I forgot the name of it.
Oh, you were the one that turned me onto that app.
Yeah, and I fucked around with it. And I button mashed this phone for like a month straight, just like looking at images because I was so amazed by what it could do
and how fast.
It's pretty cool, but I started thinking about like we're all taking references from other things, whether it's like a movie production spent $20 million creating images, Batman images, whatever. You're taking that, someone else's effort, and bringing it into your tattoos. So it's a very similar argument you can have, like where the references are coming from and who's responsible for them.
I think if you're using it strictly as a reference, because I mean the fact is, I think we all do it. I mean the Christ head you saw today, that's based off of somebody created an AI version of fucking Christ, and it's a fucking, it looks like a pencil drawing that they had done, and that's what I use for my reference on that Christ head, because, I mean, it's there. You know what I mean? And I can't even say I'm embarrassed by it, because that's what these books were for fucking decades for me.
Yeah.
You know, there was reference, you know?
Yep.
I just think it's weird and disappointing in the sense that it's made such an impact. And I think it's affecting the way everybody works. But again, I guess it's no different than, you know, a million fucking Batman paintings. You know, Batman, the Michael Keaton portraits, you know what I mean? It's all the same reference.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it'll find its place in the world, you know. And,
I think it's in. It's fucking, that bitch is cemented. She ain't going nowhere.
It's creating words for people.
I know. It's just hard to imagine where this goes from here, you know. This is just the very beginning, and it's already made such an impact.
Well, that's one of the things, like, when I went to the Honest Tattooer, and Matt had done this, like, Pictionary game with tattoos, and I thought it was clever. I thought it was really cute, you know. And he's like, "Oh, I want you to come down. We're gonna film it." And it was a fucking shit show, but it was fun. We had a good time. But I remember him saying, like, you know, he used ChatGPT for a good chunk of it, and I'm like, dude, you work in a fucking tattoo shop. Like, what are you thinking? Like, you don't need to fucking, like, ask one of the people you work with, you know.
This thing was like, you know, back in the day, you used to remember phone numbers, addresses. Now we're outsourcing all that stuff to our phones, and it's going to be the same thing. I think you're going to outsource writing and drawing and being creative out to technology. And...
Well, we've already seen that happen. Marvel Studios, when they did that shitty Nick Fury show with the Kree and stuff like that. Not the Kree, was it the Kree? The Skrulls or whatever the fuck they were. But the opening intro for that show, with all the lettering and the title and whatnot, that was all AI generated, and people lost their fucking minds, because that's Disney at that point. I mean,
but we knew that was going to happen eventually. You know, they're going to try to save money wherever they can. You know,
I think the difference, though, is a major movie production that has always relied upon artists to do their creating. And even with us, like, you know, it's fucked. I mean, we shouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, but they're going to take a shot at it, you know?
Yeah.
If they get the backlash, then they'll probably back off a little bit, but you're going to take a shot out of it to save, you know,
that is kind of disappointing, though, because there are people out there that work their whole lives to having that as their goal. I want to work for Disney. I want to be an illustrator for Disney, but now they're outsourcing that and using AI.
Well, and the worst part about that is the fact, look how many fucking... You know, look how many artists there are now. I mean, to be able to hope to get a job working for Disney now, I mean, that's got to be, you know, really daunting. And same thing with the tattooing. It's like, you know, when you look at back in the day, certain artists stood out because of the style in which they worked. You know what I mean? And then, you know, then we move on to, like, oh, well, I'm a traditional guy, so I'm going to do everything that's traditional. Oh, I'm a Japanese guy. I'm going to do everything that's Japanese. Like, so it gets to a point where it's like, you know, individuals stand out. Like James Tech stands out. You know, Philip Blue is one of the first ones that stood out. Like, you had artists that could take a prominent tattoo theme and style, and you knew it was them.
Right.
You know, G. Salerno from fucking Spain. Like, you knew it was. You know, it's that guy. How crazy is it now that you have to worry about, it's like, oh, I'm just going to put in Philip Blue, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I need a dragon that looks like a European dragon, and blah, 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 blah. And before you know it, it's pumping out exactly what that guy does. Now, don't get me wrong, people have been biting those styles forever. Right. I mean, shit, one of the things that attracted me to Mike Ledger was it reminded me of Philip Blue, but there was still something that was Ledger in all those pieces, you know? So... I think that's what weirds me out about fucking AI.
I think, though, eventually, once clients become more aware of it, they're going to want more human-created stuff. You know? Well, at least that's the hope in the future.
It is something that I've often thought about, and that's one of the arguments that I've heard from certain tattooers is the fact that it's like, well, dude, your client is paying you to create for them. You know what I mean? And you're just giving them something that's AI generated. But then you have the flip side of that, where you have artists that work and familiar with AI, and they go, dude, I know how to fucking program a computer, and I know to put the prompts in, and this, that, and the other thing. And that's become a thing unto itself. And I think that's fucking insane. but it is also the world we live in.
Yeah. I'm telling you, like, when I first started messing with that app, I was so impressed by the images I was able to just create, man. It's so tempting to, like, take that and run with it, but, you know, ultimately, it doesn't really, like, satisfy the need to create, you know?
Well, that's why I mean, if you would just, because I've seen Shane do it a couple of times, and I'm like, I think if you were to take that and then just redraw it and do all the fixing and all the little nudges that you would do to make it look more like your own thing, I almost don't have a problem with that. And if I were to do it, that's how I think I would do it, but I've still not done anything with it. What about you?
Yeah,
Like, what do you...
that's what I have messed with it too, and same thing with Christian. When I first started messing with it, I had a folder in my computer of the things that I would save, because I'm like, no one has this.
Yeah, stuff's cool.
You know,
man.
ants and mushrooms growing together. Like, but I got over that pretty quick. But I use that now for reference if I need to.
So you still do some AI stuff, or
just for
some kind of
things
simple
to look
reference?
at? Like,
Yeah.
I'll print things out from Google or the internet or between books, and sometimes I'll just put like AI images that I generated, and then from there I'll draw
Right.
from that. So
Well,
it's just my eyes are just bouncing around the many images that I have in front of me.
So I have a piece that I'm starting. I got a actual painting, well, not painting, but a drawing, pencil. It's gonna be pencils, paint, whatever. And it's a lot of mushroom stuff. And I was tempted, like, for a little bit, was like, maybe I should just do this, put it in AI and see what it comes up with, because it's all supposed to be psychedelic mushrooms. And I just ended up going on fucking Google and just pulling reference of all these different fucking mushrooms and just drawing it.
But
just
eventually,
generated.
all the references you're going to find is going to be AI anyways on Google. So,
Yeah, well, that is the fear. I mean, I'm pretty certain almost all the pictures I have are just photographs of certain psychedelic mushrooms.
I try to avoid, like, not using AI, but eventually I still use it because other people have uploaded stuff.
Well, that's exactly what I was saying with the Christ head. I think nowadays it's just really difficult because everything now that's being put online is for the most part, I would go as far as to say 80% of what, if I go on Pinterest, 80% of the stuff is AI generated.
Dude, I saw this video the other day, and it was like a guy, and there was like a giant ant crawling on him. He had a flower for a butt, and it started like opening up. This video looks so realistic, and I was just like amazed that this was created by AI. It's like, this was just the very beginning. It's fucking crazy.
Oh,
man.
well, I think that's the frightening thing, is because we're already seeing it being used in politics and everything else. So it's like,
It's nuts.
it's almost it's dangerous.
Yeah.
It's
well, at this
dangerous.
point, you just got to disregard all video. Like, doesn't matter. You cannot believe anything.
Can't believe anything you see online.
No.
on your phone.
Exactly.
These days are over.
All right, so it's only a matter of time before Skynet is activated, and we're all pretty much fucked. So
So how are we gonna market ourselves? Yeah, we're handmade tattoos.
well, it does blow my mind that, from the fact that AI is so out there, that you don't. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of influencers and stuff that are using prompts and bullshit from AI to figure out how they're going to get people to follow them and continue their influencer lifestyle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it does surprise me that with all the AI stuff that we've got going on, that the business is still doing as poorly as it is. You know what I mean? That we're not seeing a great. It's not really helping us, and I think a lot of it's got to do with the fact that we are creatives, and that there is a bit of pushback on that kind of stuff.
I don't know. I think eventually there'll be a place for it in the tattoo world. Like, a client will come in, look in the box, click what they want, print it out, hand it to a tattoo artist.
Oh, there's already a bunch of shitty apps. Like,
I'm cool with that.
Oh, you can see your actual yourself with the
Yeah,
tattoo
yeah,
already?
why not?
Yeah.
Scan yourself, take a photo, it all just does its thing, print it out for you, and all we gotta do is do the tattoo. I'm cool with that. You know?
okay,
Eventually, that's what it's gonna be. So
let me ask you a question: is it because when you look at what you do tattoo-wise, it's a job, and what you create outside of tattooing? And that's something I've often asked, and I'll ask you, are you a tattoo art? Are you a tattooist, or you are a tattoo artiste?
at this point in my career, I consider myself like no different than like a hairstylist. Yeah,
So it's a job.
it's a job. I love my job and I don't want to do anything else. But ultimately, like, it's not my creative passion to do that specific tattoo for that person, you know. But I'm gonna do the best I can for that person.
You're like a
And
work.
then I'll do my own creative thing outside of tattooing.
You're like you're basically. It's funny because we've had conversations like this with Daniel DeSantos and a bunch of other illustrators. You're an artist that works for hire. You work for hire. You know.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, we're here to make money. We're here to make people happy. You know.
Now, what about you?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I would say I'm a tattooist. I'm not. I never really had a vision that I wanted to cultivate and push on people like that. I never. I just did whatever some people told me to, what they wanted to do. I never had like a specific style that like knew was solid.
I feel like you were pushing bio for a while though.
But it wasn't mine.
You still enjoy that stuff.
Yeah,
right?
I just enjoy it.
Yeah.
But it's not like.
Well, I think there's something to be said for that. I mean, it's like anything else. I mean, I love cartoons. I like fucking anime. I shouldn't say anime. I like manga because I'm too young too old to use the anime title. But I mean, there are things that I was drawn to that changed the way I drew and created. And in the beginning, I wanted to be a tattoo artist. Mm-hmm. But there does come a point where after you've done all of that it's no longer about creating original art every single time. It's about recreating your style over and over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And that's the same way as an illustrator would do it. An illustrator creates a style in which he works, and that's what people are attracted to. Anybody who tells you that every single tattoo that they do is something original for the client, yeah, well, apparently you're not doing a lot of tattoos. Yeah. Because I think that...
I love seeing that, though. Like, someone like Jamie Reese, where it's like, all his stuff kind of looks like his style. And it seems like that's all he's doing. Who knows what he's doing outside of that, outside of stuff he's posting. But
oh, shit.
I love seeing that stuff.
According to Tony, that guy is nonstop. Yeah. Like, it's all about being creative.
Yeah.
It's all about pushing himself. And Tony, he says every once a year he goes away just to be part of that and to be around that and trying to recharge, because that guy is just such an incredible creative.
Yeah, I feel like they keep their creative energy into tattooing, and I have a hard time doing that. That's why I have to like go outside of tattooing. But,
well, I think it's also you've been good about when people come in and they ask you to do something, you don't go, no, I'm not doing that.
I'll do whatever, man. Yeah. I'll do whatever. If they're paying me to do it, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
To the best of my abilities,
Yeah.
Right. You're not going to give them a bad tattoo.
Nope.
Or at least if you think it's going to be bad, you explain to them why you think it's not a good idea.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they're going to be wearing it.
Yeah.
If they're not getting it from you, they'll get it from somebody else.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else you guys want to touch on? Or that was pretty good. Nice little conversation. It wasn't super long. It wasn't super short. We got some stuff out of the way.
We didn't talk.
Anything you want to add to it?
No. All good, man.
All right, cool. Well, thank you both for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it.
Before we end, I think you at some point have to make it a goal to create some more art.
For fuck's sake. I've already...
Since we brought that up.
So we have a couple of things coming up at the shop. We have the Pokemon show, which is also going to be a flash walk-in day. Everybody in the shop is I think it's... while I'm not into Pokemon at all... I'm doing a little bit of research in it. We're all creating flash for the show, for the event, but it is original art.
Are you doing a physical?
Oh yeah. No. Oh yeah, I'm not doing digital. Fuck that. I'm not gonna put my fucking money where my mouth is.
Just checking.
When it comes to that, even the hand show was physical. I didn't do anything. I mean, I drew it digitally, but it was done physically. No, I already have my like the drawing you had seen. I bought board for it, and I just got to sit down and fucking do it. So. Yeah, so fucking. I guess that's me throwing the gauntlet down. So in a month, if I get called out, it's on me. All right. On that note, thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Hey everybody, like and subscribe. I'm going to put everything from Marvin in the comments, or excuse me, in the description below. And again, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Later.